This course was designed to give you guys a basic overview of the phones that will be getting implemented and to go over the ShoreTel communicator. So again, my name is Chris Ruiz. I am from Overland Park, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City. And I work for a company called JMA Information Technology, which we are a partner of ShoreTel to install these phones for you guys. Today's outline, again, the purpose is to go over the phones and to pretty much go over the basic functions. And the time limit will be roughly about an hour. Okay, the good news with these phones is if you're in your office and you have a conference call that you want to take it to a conference room, you can physically unplug the network connection and move it to another location. And as long as that location is in the network, you'll be able to plug your phone into any jack and it will work. So that's the neat thing about it. Another thing to keep in mind is your computer is also plugged into this phone too. So there's two cables, one that goes from the network jack to your phone and then one from your computer to your phone. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Another thing too, if your phone freezes for whatever reason, which it shouldn't, but you can also do the same thing. To reboot your phone, just unplug the network cable and plug it back in and it will reboot. And it should take roughly around 2 minutes to do a complete reboot. Okay, and as Shane was referring to earlier, there will be some quality assurance measures going into place. Just remember, everything you say can potentially be recorded. So a good rule of thumb is if you don't want it in the newspaper, don't say it. Because it's just like email, just be careful what you say. So if you look at your phone, in the top left-hand corner, it should say training and then give the station that you're at. That will be replaced with your name. So if your name's Sally Q, your name will go there. If you look at the top right, there should be 4 numbers, and that will be your extension. So in this picture, there's not really one, but right in this location right here. Of course, you have the time and date, which kind of shows you. And then now what we're going to do is just go over the basic buttons of this phone. I'm just going to overview these really quick, and then we'll go into details and actually get you guys some hands-on and play with these phones. All right, this one right here is your volume button. This essentially serves as 2 functions. With the handset down, it will adjust the volume of the ring. With the handset picked up, it will actually adjust the call volume of the call. So just keep that in mind. Wherever the headset's at, that's what will dictate the volume. Okay, this button right here is the headset. If you have a headset, you would just plug it in and you would push this button, which if you push it, it turns green, and then that will kind of send the audio out through the headset jack.
Are all headsets compatible with this particular phone?
No. We'll kind of go over that too, which ones. All right, this one is the mute button. So if you want to place someone on mute, and if you push it, it should turn red. So if you're talking and they're not answering, look at that button, see if it's on. The next button is the speakerphone. If you push it, self-explanatory, you're on speakerphone. You can also answer the call that way too. So if the call's ringing, you hit speakerphone, and you'll have that call go through the speakers. Okay, this button right here is the voicemail. If you have a voicemail, you would push this button, and then you have a 4-digit PIN. The default password for ShoreTel is 1234. But if we set up the ShoreTel communicator, what we've been doing is it's either going to be 1234 or your extension number as a temporary password. So kind of keep that in mind too. And the voicemail is pretty straightforward. You just press the button, put in your PIN, and everything else is prompts. It'll guide you through the whole process. Do you want to play it, replay it, save it, delete it, and so forth. Okay, this button is your options. So if you want to change your ringtone, this for queues and stuff, agent logins and stuff like that, this is the button you would use. So if you want to change like the options on the internal ring and the external ring, you could do it in this button right here. Again, once you push options, you have to put in your 4-digit code. So again, it would be the default of your extension.
And if we forget the password or something?
You could call technical support and they can reset it or open up a ticket. This button right here is the directory. Essentially, it will list everybody alphabetically, and you can kind of scroll through and find someone. So if you don't know their extension number, you could go through there and find them. And again, we'll go through all these exercises, but this is just kind of a fast overview of the buttons. Redial. Redial is the last person you called. It also serves as a call history, and I believe it shows the last 20 calls, who called you and who you called. This is the transfer button. So if you want to transfer a call, you would use this. If you want to conference in a call, you would use this. In the lab environment, you can conference up to 3 lines. But once everything gets implemented, you'll be able to conference up to 6 parties at one time. And this is the hold button. So if you want to place someone on hold, then that's the button you would use. The intercom button, well, essentially you hit that and you can intercom different people and it will come throughout the speakers of each phone. This button right here is the scroll button. So if you're in the directory, you can use this to go up and down, or in the options, you would use this to go up and down the options there. The little red button in the top right-hand corner is your indicator light. Anytime you have a voicemail, this light will be flashing red. This little handset upside down indicates if you have a missed call, and the number to the left indicates how many. So in this case, you have 1 missed call. Okay, so the next thing is learning how to dial out externally. So you guys currently use 9, same thing. Press 9 to dial out, and you'll have an outside line. So nothing there changes. And also, too, if it's long distance, obviously you have to dial a 1.
Chris, there was a
Sure.
quick question that I overheard in the back. The mute button, you use that, let's say you're on a conference call and people are in your office and you need to speak to somebody else while you're listening, but you don't want to interrupt the conference call, you press the mute button, and that way the actual speaker, you'll still be able to hear, but nobody will be able to hear anything coming through the receiver. Or same thing if you're on you're using your phone for conference purposes, and you don't want to interrupt with the conversation occurring, but you want to talk to the person across from you in the same room, press the mute button. That way they won't hear you, but you have to make sure to press the mute button again, so that way you can rejoin the conversation.
Another option, too, is if you're going to be gone for a long, extended period of time, put them on hold, and we are setting up music on hold, so they'll hear some music while they wait for you. Okay, so in this exercise, we're going to use the directory. So let's say you're looking up, you're trying to find John Doe, and you don't know his extension. So you can actually go through the directory, scroll down, and find a name, and dial it. There's 2 ways to do it. So if everyone hits the directory key, use the scroll button, which is kind of near the top, left hand. And there's 2 ways to actually dial. You'll see a dial button show up, and then also you can just pick up the headset to dial. Okay, so the next thing is the missed call indicator. And again, the upside down or the face down handset indicates that you have a missed call. And again, the number on the left indicates how many calls you have missed. So go ahead and call your neighbor and hang up real quick. And whoever's getting called, don't answer. Okay, now that you guys have a missed call, you can hit the redial button. And it kind of acts as a history button that you can see who called you. And then you can call them back if you wish. So another thing to keep in mind, if you hit redial twice, it will dial the person that you dialed last, not necessarily the person who just called you. So if you hit redial twice really quick, it will dial the last person you called. Okay, so this option, if you're busy or if you're in a meeting, you can send a call straight to voicemail. So when you receive a call, there's a button, the 4 buttons at the top here. One of them will display 2VM. That 2VM stands for send a voicemail. So go ahead and call your neighbor and send them to voicemail. Another thing to keep in mind is after 4 rings, automatically it will go to voicemail. So if you don't answer after 4 rings, by default it will go to voicemail. Okay, so the next step is how do you check your voicemail? So again, the blinking red light indicates that you have a new voice message. And to answer or to check that voice message, you will press the voicemail button and then press the 4-digit code. And the 4-digit code, again, is the extension of that phone. Now we're going to go over the transfer. And there's basically 2 types of transfers. You can blind transfer, and there's also a consultative transfer. Blind transfer means someone calls you, they ask for someone, and you just transfer it to them regardless if they answer or not. It may go to voicemail. Essentially, you're not talking to them. So you're just sending it straight to their extension without talking to them. Consultative, on the other hand, is you wait for them to answer and say, hey, I have a call. Do you want it? Yes or no? So we'll kind of go over both of them. But the first one is the blind that we're going to go over. So this one, we may have to work in groups.
Blind.
That's blind. So you're not really worried about if she answers or not.
After I transfer, I hang up.
Correct.
Okay.
Consultative is probably the better approach because you can then go back to her and say, well, Claudia's not answering. Do you want her voicemail type thing? So it's a little bit.
Reception.
Exactly. But they're just, it's still probably a better method. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's go ahead and use the blind function. But essentially, it's just hit transfer, dial the extension, and hit transfer again. So the next method, this time you're going to talk to the person and say, was it Claudia? Is Claudia there? Then you'll wait for Claudia to answer and say, I have a call for you, then transfer it. So essentially, instead of hitting transfer, the extension, and transfer again, you wait for that person to answer and then hit transfer.
Oh.
That's the difference, and that's what you were getting at earlier. So you would wait for me to answer and say, I have a call from Shane. Would you like to accept it? Right. Or if it rings, you could say, he's not available right now. Would you like his voicemail? So the next function is how to conference. So again, you're going to have to work in groups, but essentially the same thing. Call the number. So if you call, what's it?
Araceli.
Call her.
Araceli.
I don't want to butcher it.
It's from Kansas City.
Yeah, give me a break. We'll work on that afterwards. And then you want to conference in Claudia. And then you 3 should be on a line together. So here's one thing to remember. It puts the first caller on hold. So what you have to do is hit conference again, and then all 3 of us will be online. You'll have the ability to do this up to 6 times, so you do the same thing. If you conference someone else, it will put us on hold. We'll be able to talk to each other, and then you'll be able to go up to 6 times. So you just have to hit conference.